Section 12 of Orpheus with His Lute by W.M.L. Hutchinson. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. In the House of Apollo. In those far-off golden days, man's life was full of music from the cradle to the grave. The shepherd piped to his flock, the smith sang at the forge, and the housewife at the loom. The husbandmen had their songs of seed-time and harvest. Merry minstrelsy brought home the bride, and not without dirges due the mourners buried their dead. And everywhere the wandering singer would find all doors open to him for the love man had to his art. None more welcome than he to a share of the best, whether the feast were spread in king's palace or peasant's cot. Thus it was with Orpheus, as he fared southward day by day, and wherever he came, the hearts of the folk were won by his beauty and by the sweetness of his singing, so that they would fain have kept him among them. But neither with rich nor poor would he sojourn for more than a night, being bound, he said, upon a certain quest, and he would take no gift at parting, but gave gentle thanks to his hosts, and so bade them farewell. Now, when he had journeyed many days, Orpheus came upon a broad highway, stretching far to southward, and saw throngs of travelers passing along it, some afoot, and some mounted on horse or mule. To one of these bands he joined himself, and having learned that they were going to Apollo's festival at Delphi, he asked to be of their company, which the pilgrims granted with right good will. They had not gone far upon that road when they overtook a train of sumpter asses and of wagons drawn by slow-footed oxen. At the head of them, an old, white-bearded king was borne in a litter amidst a great retinue of slaves and spearmen. And beside the litter, a dark-haired maiden, richly arrayed, rode a sleek, ambling mule. As the young minstrel passed, the maiden turned her head, and her shy, soft gaze rested on his face. At the same instant, the lute, slung from his shoulder, gave forth a jarring chime, and one of its strings snapped in twain. "That bodes misfortune," said his companions, and they made the sign that wards off evil, and hurried onwards. But Orpheus neither heard nor heeded the omen. He followed them in rapt silence, for the face the maiden had turned towards him but a moment was as a vision out of the land of dreams. He scarcely knew that it was beautiful, with the beauty of a pale flower, and lit by eyes of liquid sapphire. He felt as one might who had glanced upon an open book and seen that some fateful message to himself was written there in lines that vanished ere he could decipher them. Nor did he even wish to know who this maiden was, or hope to see her again. She belonged to a wonderful moment that could no more come back than a dream can. So he listened indifferently to the talk of his companions about the old king in the litter, how he came from a far northern land that some of them knew well, and was journeying with his great train to Delphi to seek healing of Apollo for a disease that no physicians had been able to cure. "Saw you the maiden wrapped in a green mantle, who rode at his right hand?" said one. "She is his only child, the Princess Eurydice. 'Tis said her father will shortly bestow her in marriage, and royal suitors flock to the palace. Well they may, for she will inherit his fair kingdom." Towards evening of that same day, these pilgrims came in sight of snow-crowned Parnassus, and saw the sheer wall of rock at the mountain's foot glow like a golden rampart in the sun. Crescent-shaped was the mighty barrier, and divided midway in two shining cliffs, between which a torrent descended in silvery falls to the long glen below. And at the glen's head, close under the cliffs, flashed the gilded roofs of temple and treasury and colonnade. It seemed a city stood there, all gold and marble, so many and sumptuous were the mansions in this glorious dwelling-place of Apollo. "Delphi, Delphi!" cried the pilgrims. "See yonder the shining cliffs and the water of Castaly." And they hastened forwards to mingle with the crowds already nearing the sanctuary. In those great precincts there was house-room for an army, and all who came were entertained as guests of the god, and lodged as suited their degree. Stewards of the temple hospitably received Orpheus and his companions, and when they had washed off the dust and soil of travel, the tired wayfarers were served with meat and drink of the best in a painted chamber. Now, while they supped, a man of grave and reverend aspect, somewhat stricken in years, came into them and greeted them courteously. "I," said he, "am Xenarches, whose family is one of the 5 Delphian houses to which belongs the care of Apollo's temple, with its treasures and broad lands. It is my office at this time to oversee the entertainment of his guests, and look well to it that they lack nothing." The pilgrims thanked him for his courtesy, and when he had heard that they fared to their heart's content, he sat down beside Orpheus, and joined the company in pouring out the accustomed libations to the gods. The chamber where they sat was open on one side to a pillared court. In this court a flock of tame pigeons were feeding, and it chanced that one of these birds, fluttering into the chamber, began to sip the wine drops sprinkled on the floor by Orpheus as he made libation. Xenarches smiled and said to him, "Do you know, young stranger, how great a crime was once averted here by the very thing that you see this pigeon doing?" "No, noble Xenarches," answered Orpheus, "but very gladly would we hear the tale, if it please you to tell it." "I will make a bargain with you," said the Delphian. "By the lute at your side, I perceive you are a minstrel, and if, when I have related the event I have in mind, this company agrees that they have never heard a story more marvelous, you shall repay me with a song." To this Orpheus and the rest assented eagerly, and Xenarches began his tale. The story of Aeon. My grandsire, may he rest in peace, being a scion of one of the noblest Delphian houses, and having, moreover, both father and mother alive, was, in his 13th year, chosen by lot among others of the same age and condition for the coveted office of laurel-bearer at Apollo's festival. Yearly, as you know, we of Delphi keep the feast of the god, but once in every 9 years it is celebrated with especial solemnity, as it will be tomorrow. And at these greater festivals, he whom we call the laurel-bearer carries in procession an olive bough decked with garlands of the sacred bay. Now my grandsire, being thus chosen, remained, according to custom, in the temple precincts until the day of the feast, and on the eve thereof he witnessed the strange happenings which I shall now relate. Many a time have I heard him tell the tale in my boyhood, for the good old man was never weary of repeating it. There was then among the ministers of the god a youth, Aeon by name, who won the praise of all for his diligent service in the holy place. His country and parentage were unknown. His only home was the temple, and it was said that he had been found there as a babe by Apollo's priestess herself. This kinless waif could not aspire to the priesthood, which belonged solely to those of the ancient Delphian stock, but he deemed it happiness and honor enough to be a doorkeeper in the house of the god. It was sunrise of the day before the festival, when Aeon, as his habit was, set about sweeping the temple porch with his broom of bay and sprinkling pure water on the marble floor. Presently there approached him a troop of damsels in bright array. They paused upon the steps of the shrine and spoke eagerly together, and it was plain from their talk that they had viewed the lordly temple for the first time. "I had not thought," cried one, "that the gods were so richly housed elsewhere than in Athens." "See," cried another, "how wondrous fair are yonder sculptures above the portal. Gods and giants, wrought to the life, are waging the great war that poets tell of. And look, our own Athena strikes down one of the earth-born with her spear invincible." Then one of the damsels advanced to Aeon and asked whether it were permitted to enter the temple itself. "It is not permitted," said he, "to any strangers, save to those who have offered sacrifice to the god and seek to inquire of his holy oracle." "We must tarry here, then," said the damsel, "and await our mistress, whom we left making such offerings at the great altar yonder as befit her high estate." I perceive, maidens, said Aeon, that you come from famous Athens. Tell me, I pray you, what lady of that city you call mistress? One who is sovereign lady there, answered the damsel, even Creusa, daughter to King Erechtheus of glorious memory. Lo, hither she comes. With that there drew near a woman beautiful and queenly, clad in sumptuous raiment, and wearing a jeweled diadem. Her face was very sad, and as she halted, gazing on the temple, Aeon saw that her eyes filled with tears. Ah, royal Creusa, said he, how comes it that you weep at sight of this hallowed dwelling, which all pilgrims else behold with thankfulness and joy? Believe me, though a stranger to you, I cannot but be deeply moved at the distress of one so fair and gracious. I thank you, courteous youth, answered Creusa. The sight of Apollo's house waked a bitter memory within me. But the pang is past. Let us speak of other things. My name, it seems, is known to you. Be pleased to tell me your own, which should be a noble one, for gentle manners come of gentle blood. Happy the mother, she added, looking at him with a sigh, who has a son such as you. Lady, said Aeon, blushing under her gaze, I am but a nameless foundling, whom the Pythia, Apollo's prophetess, reared from the day that unknown hands laid me as an infant at this portal, and she is all the mother I have ever known. Alas, poor lad, cried Creusa, it is my turn now to pity. And who would not pity your hard lot, an orphan, and destitute, and a thrall instead of free? Nay, said the youth, Apollo's thrall I am, but I count such servitude a nobler thing than liberty itself. Fatherless I am, yet the god is to me a father, and we, his ministers, lack neither food nor raiment beseeming the household of a king. Call me rather happy beyond the common fate of mortals. Do you never think, asked Creusa very low, that the mother who bore you may yet grieve for her lost child, as one known to me has never ceased to grieve? She paused, and said to her handmaids, Go, see if my lord and husband be not at hand by now. And as they withdrew, she turned again to Aeon, who was looking at her with surprise. Yes, she said, I have a friend who has suffered even as it may be your mother did. It is for her sake I have hastened hither before Zalthus, my husband, that I may inquire a certain thing of the god on her behalf, for to none but myself has she told her secret sorrow. But now, kind youth, I am about to trust you with a tale, since it bears some likeness to your own, and methinks you will not refuse to help me in my errand here when you have heard all. Very gladly will I do aught to serve you, gracious lady, said Aeon. If I interpret your words aright, the friend of whom you speak has lost a child, and desires Apollo to reveal what has become of it. But in what manner was it taken from her? Stolen by some enemy, or seized by pirates to be sold into slavery? And how or why could she make a secret of its loss? Listen, and you shall hear, said Creusa. This hapless friend became in her childhood the bride of Apollo. What say you? Exclaimed Aeon, starting. Apollo wed a mortal maiden? Nay, this passes belief. It is true, nevertheless, replied Creusa steadily, nor can you be ignorant that many heroes and kings boast their descent from such unions of immortal gods with the fair daughters of men. But ill-starred among women are they whose beauty makes them desired of heavenly bridegrooms. Aye, with long sorrow must they buy that brief glory. Now Apollo took a pledge of this maiden to keep their wedlock secret until he himself should declare it, and after a while he departed from her, promising to return if she remained faithful to him. So when it came to pass that a son was born to her, she hid the babe in a cavern on the hill of Athens, having wrapped it in rich webs of her own weaving, and laid it in a carven cradle. So soon as might be, she visited the cave by stealth, and alas, cradle and babe were gone. Long, long she searched the hillside round about for any trace or token of its fate, but all in vain. From that day to this, no tidings have ever reached her. One thing only has given her hope, that the child did not perish. If some prowling beast had made prey of it, the cradle would not likewise have vanished. Surely, said Aeon, Apollo would protect his own. Did she not once think that he had carried the babe away to be reared in safety? And did he not return to her as he promised? She never saw him more, said Creusa, casting down her eyes. Call her faithless, if you will. But in a little space her father made a marriage for her with a certain noble warrior, and what could a weak maiden do but submit? Faithless! Is it not Apollo that is faithless? Apollo, who came not to her succor in the hour of need? Oh, hush, dear lady, cried the pious youth distressfully. These are no words to use of him who does all things well. Though for a season he may veil his purpose, be sure that he ever brings good out of evil. Be patient, and think no more of questioning him concerning the lost child, for the gods love not those who pry into their secret dealings. At this moment the Prince Xalthus was seen advancing with cheerful mien, a tall and stalwart chieftain of ripe age, clad in a gorgeous suit of armor. In a hurried whisper, Creusa told Aeon that her husband was come to Delphi to inquire of the oracle why their marriage was so long unblessed with offspring. He had turned aside upon the road to the shrine of the hero Trophonios, having heard that oracles were given there also, and nothing must now be said of the errand on which she had hastened to Apollo's sanctuary before him. Courteously Xalthus greeted his wife, and bade her be of good cheer, for the oracle of Trophonios had declared that they should leave Delphi no longer childless. More than this, they must wait to hear from Delphi's lord. It seemed he had already offered the due sacrifice, and having recommended Creusa to repose herself a while in the guest chamber allotted them, he entered the temple, elated with hope. But Creusa turned away in mournful silence. Aeon looked after her and sighed for pity. It was, he felt sure, her own story that she had told him, her own child that, if indeed it lived, had grown up a motherless waif, like himself. Now there was in Creusa's retinue a certain aged slave, who had had the charge of King Erechtheus when a child, and had watched with loving care over her own infancy. His lifelong devotion had endeared him to his royal mistress, and she treated him almost as a second father. This old man went at her request to bring Xalthus to her chamber so soon as he came from the temple, with the response of the prophetess, but she meanwhile sat wrapped in bitter musings. What was it to her that Apollo might promise an heir to the throne of Erechtheus? Could that atone for the long years of anguish, or soothe her longing for her firstborn? And of him she must know nothing till the end. She saw clearly that neither Aeon nor any of the Delphians would put the question to Apollo which she dared not ask for herself. Nothing remained for her but to endure in silence. Her only comfort must be that children, if they came, would bring joy to her brave and kindly husband, and to her loyal people of Athens. As she thus mused, the old slave returned, alone. He came in with hasty step and indignant look, and cried in a trembling voice, "Ah, daughter of Erechtheus, we are undone, betrayed by your false husband and the god he has bribed." "What words are these?" exclaimed the astonished queen. "What has befallen? My husband false? The old man surely dotes." "No, no," he said more calmly. "Listen, child of my heart. There is a plot against you. Trust the old servant to smell out treason. Now hear what I have seen and heard, and judge for yourself. No sooner came Xalthus forth from the door of the temple than a youth who stood within the porch advanced to meet him. Whereat Xalthus, suddenly flinging his arms about his neck, loudly hailed him by the name of son. The youth shook him off angrily, deeming him some madman, or feigning so to deem, who knows? But Zalthus, clinging to his arm, declared that Apollo had given this response: "Him that shall meet thee as thou crossest my threshold, claim for thy son. Him do I give thee to be thy son by adoption, for he is in very truth thy nearest kinsman." Now when the youth heard this, he said, "Apollo's will be done. At his sacred bidding I will yield you henceforth the name of father, and the due obedience of a son." Forthwith Zalthus embraced him again with tears of joy, and led him away, vowing to sacrifice 100 oxen to Apollo, and as many to Bacchus, lord of Parnassus's hill, and to give a kingly banquet to all the Delphians in honor of this auspicious day. The traitor, the crafty villain! Thus thinks he to foist his own child by some alien woman upon us, thus to set a usurper on the ancient throne of Erechtheus? But that shall never be." "I know not what you mean," said Creusa faintly. "Why, beloved mistress," said the old man, "it is all clear as noonday. Bethink you who and what Xuthos is. A foreigner, a wandering soldier of fortune, whom King Erechtheus rewarded with your hand for the great service he did Athens in war. Who knows aught of his life before he came among us? Who knows that he had not already a wife of low degree, dead or forsaken, ere he wedded you? I say this day's work proves it. I say this boy, whom Xuthos will present to you as his adopted son, is his own son. The oracle and the pretended accident of their meeting were contrived to deceive you." "His nearest kinsman," quoth the oracle. "Aye, and had you seen the joy of Xuthos but now, you would have guessed how near. Oh, 'twas a deep-laid scheme. The lad has been reared here until the time was ripe. Then your husband makes this journey on the plea of consulting the god, having bought the response he desired beforehand. Yes, bribed Apollo and his priests with your wealth, my wronged lady. What cares he that you are childless, while he can play the happy father? Now will he exult, now will he scorn and slight you, whom he has duped so easily. Nay, if children are yet born to you, he will thrust them from their rightful heritage for the sake of this alien youth. Will you endure this, daughter of so many kings? No, by the soul of Erechtheus, you shall be avenged this selfsame day, though I die for it." "What will you do?" said Creusa fearfully, yet eagerly. "Kill Aeon," answered the old man in a fierce whisper. "Aeon!" cried the queen, turning pale. "Was it then Aeon who met my husband?" "That is the lad's name," replied the other. "It means the comer, as I heard his father say, who had the craft to ask him for it, like any stranger, and to swear 'twas of lucky omen, seeing Apollo bade him take the first comer for son. But this comer comes not to Athens alive." And now Creusa's last doubt vanished. The conviction rushed upon her that Aeon was in truth her husband's son. The priestess, who pretended to have found him, had been charged with the care of him by Xuthos, and had helped in the shameless fraud of his adoption. This gentle queen had yet the high spirit of her ancient race. It rose in passionate revolt against the indignity put upon her, against the treachery and deceit that Xuthos had practiced to gain his ends. Doubtless, she thought bitterly, he feared I should prove a harsh stepdame. How little he has known me in all these years. If he had trusted me with a child, it should have been to me as my own. It should have stilled my mother hunger for the lost one. With that, she remembered the strange tenderness that came over her while she looked upon Aeon, and how she had envied his unknown mother. Pity strove with anger in her heart, and she said to the slave, "This lad, he is so young, too young to die. Is there no other way?" But he answered sternly that there was none, and bade her beware of delay. What we do, he said, must be done quickly if you are to escape suspicion of prompting the murder. Nay, start not at the word. What is a boy's life to the honor of a great and ancient house? My princess, this is no time to falter. Think, could Erechtheus speak from his grave, would he not bid us deal swift death to this upstart alien, who, if he lives, will sit on the throne of glorious Athens? Now hear my resolve. I will poison Aeon secretly at the banquet that is toward, if you will give me the wherewithal. But if you will not, I will stab him in the sight of all, and then let come what come may. For when I meet my master in the underworld, he shall not say I proved unfaithful to him at the last." "I will do anything," cried Creusa, "rather than suffer you to face certain death. But how can I give you what you ask? If you mean I should purchase it, to whom in this strange place shall I offer gold for some deadly drug? That were to betray all." The old man smiled grimly, and stretching forth his hand, drew from Creusa's wrist a golden bracelet in the form of a serpent. "Here is what I need," said he. "Have you forgotten, lady, what the hollowed head of this snake contains? A drop of the venom of those serpents that formed the Gorgon's tresses. This bracelet Athena herself gave to Erechtheus when she had slain that foul monster. But why do I repeat a tale you have known from childhood? I go, for by this time the feast should be begun, and when the goblets are filled, then let the son of Xuthos beware of his cupbearer." So saying, the ancient slave hurried away. Creusa turned to her maidens and said, "My girls, you have heard all, and now both my life and the life of my faithful servant depend upon your silence. Be loyal and true as you have ever been." They all cried out with tears that they would keep her secret to the death, and she thanked them, smiling wanly, and after that there was silence in the chamber. An hour had passed that seemed long as 10 to the women in their suspense, when a serving man of the queen's rushed in, haggard with alarm. "Fly, royal mistress," he cried wildly. "Fly to the altar ere the Delphians seize upon you. They have taken the old man in the act. Your bracelet was found upon him. Oh, flee to sanctuary while yet you may." But Creusa stood like one turned to stone. "The boy," she gasped. "Aeon, is he dead?" "No," said the servitor. "He tasted not the cup. Apollo has preserved his own. But ask no more. We must away. Ah, maidens, look, she swoons, our lady. Quick, quick, let us carry her to the altar of refuge." With trembling haste they bore the fainting queen to the altar that stood before the temple, and as they set her down, she revived and said, tell me, what has befallen?" And briefly the trusty slave told her all. The old man, he said, had mingled with the attendants at the feast, and busied himself so earnestly in serving the guests that his officious zeal raised many a smile among them. But especially was he forward to wait upon the son of Xuthos with every mark of reverence. And when, at the banquet's close, all the cups were filled for the pouring out of libation to the gods, it was the old man who handed a brimming goblet to Aeon. Now Aeon was lord of the feast, for Xuthos was not yet returned from sacrificing to Bacchus on Parnassus, and it behooved him to utter the accustomed prayer to Zeus and pour the first libation. Even as he did so, one of the guests uttered a chance word of unlucky omen, and with that Aeon set down his cup untasted, and bade the rest do likewise. "Bring fresh goblets," he said to the slaves, "for I have heard an unlucky word, and we must make libation anew." So this was done, and for a while all was merry, while the wine went round. But presently some of the temple doves fluttered in to peck at the crumbs beneath the tables, and one of them was seen to dip its beak into the drops of wine that Aeon had poured on the ground at the first libation. No sooner had the bird drunk of that draught than shudders convulsed its glossy body. It struggled piteously for a moment, and fell dead on its back, with pink claws stiffly upturned. "The dove is poisoned," exclaimed Aeon, "poisoned with wine from my cup. Where is the man that gave it me?" They dragged the old slave before him, but not a word would he say until, searching his garments, they found the golden snake, and Aeon cried, "This bracelet I saw upon Queen Creusa's arm. 'Tis she who has plotted my death. See, friends, the snake's head is open, and the hollow is tinged with some dark liquid." Then said the old man, "Spare my lady, for the guilt is mine alone." At that the Delphians were for slaying him upon the spot, but Aeon bade them do him no hurt. "The poor old slave," said he, "is but a tool in the hand of his mistress. Keep him safe here, worthy friends, until I learn what she can say of this matter." "Down with her," cried the angry guests. "Down with the murderess. She shall die the death." It was at this moment that the terrified serving man had fled unobserved to warn Creusa, and now, as he repeated those dreadful words, she looked up and saw Aeon coming towards her, followed by a band of armed men. "Cling fast to the altar," whispered the slave, "and they will not dare lay hands on you." Aeon waved back his followers and strode up to the queen where she knelt, clutching the altar stone. She gave one look at his beautiful young face, pale now and sternly set, and bowed her head, unable to bear his accusing gaze. "Unhappy woman," said he, "I do not need to ask if you have sought my life. Your eyes have told me that. I ask what wrong I have done you that you should wish to murder me." Creusa lifted her head, and with sudden passion, "What wrong?" she said. "Can bitterer wrong be done to a queen and the daughter of kings than that some nameless woman's son should usurp the place of her lawful heir, should lord it in the house of her fathers, and watch with greedy eyes for her to die, that he may wear her crown? This wrong you would have done me, and I were no true child of Erechtheus had I not striven to hinder it." "O blessed Apollo, my preserver," cried the youth, "hear for what a cause this woman would have destroyed thy innocent servant within the very courts of thy sanctuary. Drag her from the altar, temple guards. Against the god has she sinned, and not against man only. This holy place shall not protect a wretch who would have polluted it with murder." Then proudly rose up Creusa before them all, still holding by the altar, and she said, "Though life be hateful, I will not die a death of shame. Touch me not, servants of Apollo, for I am his. Yea, I bid him bear me witness. I call on him, if there be any faith or truth among immortal gods, to save me now, whom once he held so dear." "Be silent, thrice miserable!" exclaimed Aeon in tones of horror. "What? Dare you take his holy name in vain at his very altar? With my own hands I will tear you from it." But as he sprang forward to seize her, a voice from the temple porch cried, "Hold, Aeon! Lay no hand on Apollo's suppliant, I charge you." It was the priestess who had thus spoken. Slowly she descended the steps, a venerable woman in trailing robes of purest white, with a crown of laurel on her gray hair. She beckoned the youth to her side, and put something enwrapped in a purple cloth into his hands. "Child," she said solemnly, "I have an errand to you from the god. He sends you this, the cradle wherein I found you lying, a helpless babe, and bids you look within it for tokens that shall reveal the secret of your birth. Delay not, for this is the destined hour when I, whom you have called mother for so long, must yield that name to her that bore you." So saying, the priestess kissed his forehead, and with a murmured blessing she turned and went again into the temple. Wonderstruck, Aeon undid the purple cloth and disclosed to view a cradle of cedar wood, gay with painted figures of beasts and birds. And as all present gazed curiously thereon, eager to learn the secret of which the Pythia had spoken, Creusa rushed suddenly from the altar and flung herself sobbing upon Aeon's neck. My son, she panted out, my own child. It is the very cradle I laid my baby in, the cradle that once had been mine. Your child, cried Aeon with angry amazement. What madness is this? Ah, 'tis another trick to save your wretched life, but it shall not serve, and he strove to thrust her from him. No, no, she said, clinging to him frantically. It is no trick, but blessed truth. Prove me. Bid me say what lies in the cradle under that veil. My veil. Stand at a distance, then, said Aeon, and turn your back upon me while I look upon the tokens. Creusa obeyed, and having lifted the broidered veil, he asked her what he saw. You see 3 things, she answered. One is a piece of woven stuff. You have guessed well, interrupted Aeon, but such a guess was easy. Nay, hear me, went on the queen. It is wrought with the figure of the winged Gorgon. The weaving is faulty and uneven, for it was my first girlish task at the loom. Tell me of the other tokens, said Aeon in a voice that trembled. There is a spray of olive, said Creusa, fresh and green as when I plucked it, for it grew on Athena's sacred, never-fading tree. And there is also the necklet that each babe of our house has worn as a talisman, since the goddess bestowed it on Eurystheus, her fosterling, a golden necklet in the form of a snake. A cry of wonder broke from Aeon. He turned, holding up the 3 tokens for all to see, and running to Creusa, he clasped her to his breast, saying, Mother, dearest mother, you are found at last. My grandsire used to tell us that none who saw those 2 sobbing for joy in each other's arms could refrain from tears, and I may well believe him. With one accord, he said, the bystanders stole silently away, as feeling it was not for strangers to witness emotions so sacred, nor hear the first outpourings of the mother's long pent-up love. But afterwards it was rumored in Delphi that while Aeon and Creusa were yet speaking together, there befell the crowning wonder of that wondrous day. For the goddess Athena, guardian of their race and city, appeared to them in all her glory, and they were sore afraid. But she bade them be of good cheer, and made known to them all the providence of Apollo, and that he it was who had brought Creusa's babe to Delphi. Unto this day, said the goddess, he has watched over you both for good, nor shall his loving kindness fail you your lives long. Twice so many years as she has mourned shall Creusa live happy in her son's love, that for all her pain she may have joy in double measure. And for thee, Aeon, Apollo ordains a glorious lot in the years to come. Founder shalt thou be of mighty cities in a fair and goodly land that he will give thee for thine inheritance, and that country shall make thy memory famous to all generations, being called Aeonia after thy name. Such was Athena's prophecy, and my grandsire lived to see it fulfilled. In his riper years he sojourned more than once in renowned Athens, where our house has many a noble guest friend, and the saying went there that never mother and son loved each other so entirely as Queen Creusa and her long-lost child. End of In the House of Apollo. Read by Mark Harrington, Framingham, Massachusetts.